is up, everybody? Travis Fowler Harkrider is back with a new edition of Tights and Turnbuckles. So, y'all know what time it is. Let's talk pro wrestling. Welcome back to the channel if you are returning, and if you are new to this channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you hear. For everybody, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button because it doesn't cost a thing for you to do so, and it really helps out the channel. Make sure you throw us a little thumbs up while you're at it as well, and then go follow our social media pages: Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. And we're going to switch things up with how I do this podcast now, because I feel like a lot of people get bored with talking about the weekly wrestling stuff that goes on in the ring, because let's face it, we can all go and watch it. We can watch highlight clips. We can do this, or this, and find out what's going on. So I'm going to just narrow it down to just topics that come to mind, whether it be from the news or just anything that goes on during the week that seems noteworthy to talk about. So that's what we're going to start doing now with these episodes. Might actually cut down on the time a little bit too. I don't know though, because I'm actually a long-winded person and I enjoy talking quite a bit. So I might still be making these episodes just as long because I just ramble on and on a little bit, kind of like what I'm doing now. But let's not waste any more time. I want to go right into some of our topics of discussion. And the number one being is something that I feel like is very much a conversation that needs to be had, because it feels like, and yes, this is speaking as somebody who grew up during the Monday Night War era and had tribalism essentially at its finest to a degree, but not to the extent that we've seen recently since AEW has come on the scene. It seems like, for whatever reason now, you can't just pick one side and enjoy both, or actually scratch that. You have to pick a side, it feels like, and you can't just enjoy both. Because honestly, the two wrestling companies in particular, and in this case we're talking AEW and WWE, they have two distinct styles, and really neither one of them is wrong. It's just one people prefer over the other, and vice versa. But the fact that this has now started to become something that has really started triggering people online, whether it be because you just want to troll somebody or because you actually feel this way. First off, if you actually feel this way, please keep in mind, this is professional wrestling. None of this is actually real. Like, the actual in-ring stuff, yes, the physicality, as we all know, is real to a certain degree. But like the stories and everything that we buy into when it comes to this, it's no different than any other TV show that you watch. So you might want to tone it down a little bit on that tribalism if you take it too personally. But number two, you have to really understand that WWE and AEW being in the same realm, meaning professional wrestling, is actually great. Any company that comes to the forefront and gets like a TV deal or is on IWTV, which, by the way, Wrestling for a Cause is on IWTV, and it's only $10 a month. Y'all should check it out. And you can hear yours truly do commentary for Wrestling for a Cause, WFC. Again, give it a listen and a check out. Anyway, no matter what, there's always going to be people that either like or dislike the form of wrestling you put on. It's just whatever your flavor is. So I want to kind of discuss what the main difference between WWE and AEW is. I feel like it's pretty obvious, but for people that don't really pay attention, if you will, to the style, the distinct styles, maybe this will kind of clear things up, and maybe this will give some insight as to why some people like one side more than they do the other. We'll start with WWE because they're the ones that have obviously been around longer, and they have basically ruled the foothold of professional wrestling for the last 20 plus years. So I basically have characterized WWE as cinema or drama with a little bit of action in it. And I say that because, for the most part, when you watch a WWE show, whether it be Raw, SmackDown, or one of their PLEs, they pretty much do the same type of wrestling. And what that is it's a very cinematic approach to telling a wrestling story. Wrestling stories usually have 4 parts, some would argue 3, but The trainer that I've worked with has always broke it down to 4 distinct parts. WWE plays that really well, actually. And that is something that they really drive home. And it's kind of the philosophy that I've grown up watching as well as trained in. So it's one of those situations where I don't hate the WWE style because that's what I'm used to. And I understand some people's argument to that is that that's exactly the point, is you're used to it, so it's hard for you to enjoy a different type of product. In my case, it's not, because I also, again, grew up in the Monday Night War era, and the style of wrestling I watched on a regular basis was WCW. And while there are some key differences between WCW and AEW, they pretty much had the basics of the same type of style, which was a very wrestling oriented type of presentation. I'll explain what that means in a minute. But going back to WWE, they utilize the moves to help tell the overall story in the match. That's why when you hear people say it's not about the moves, it's about the story you're telling, that's what they're referring to. They don't put moves and spots ahead of what they're trying to tell with their matches. Each match has a specific narrative that these guys and gals are trying to tell, at least on the WWE side. And if you're not a fan of that, or if you think that's a little too Hollywood-esque for professional wrestling, then no, WWE would not be for you. However, on the flip side of that, you have AEW, who is a very wrestling-oriented product. It's what I would call moves before drama type of style. And it's essentially exactly what it sounds. It's the exact opposite of what WWE does. AEW focuses more on the in-ring product, meaning they focus more on what moves can you do, which is why when you have guys like Will Ospreay who come out and say things like, I feel like we're better than the guys over in WWE, we're better than them on every front, whether it be promos or more specifically in his case, the in-ring style, he might have an actual point. But here and there is what lies the problem. Just because WWE doesn't utilize the same style that AEW does not mean that there are guys that can't do what he's doing. Do I think there are people that can do what Will Ospreay's doing currently? And to his level, no, I don't think so. I will agree that there's nobody really that can match him, at least in the WWE front that I can see currently. And this doesn't include any of the AEW talent that have come over to WWE. Obviously, they can probably match up pretty well with him, but I don't want to count those because they've already had somewhat of that taste, and I don't want to kind of compare apples to oranges because we've seen some of those guys already start adjusting to the WWE style. Penta, in my opinion, is actually done very well about transitioning from his moves first and high spot after high spot mentality to really conserving it in a WWE style. He is very much, and it would not surprise me if he has been under the tutelage of Rey Mysterio, taking notes from him, learning from him of how to adjust his style. I would say if he hasn't, then he really should at this point. I'm sure Rey Fenix has been doing something very similar. So that's the main difference between the two. AEW really does like to put the in-ring action in front of whatever it is that they're doing on screen for a story. I don't think you'll find a more clear-cut example than what we've seen happen this past weekend when it comes to Double or Nothing and the next match that's been made. They have booked Mark Briscoe versus Ricochet, of all people, in a stretcher match. A stretcher match for Double or Nothing. Now, to be fair, I don't watch Collision regularly. But what I can say is I have watched Dynamite regularly, and I have not seen really a whole lot of interaction between Briscoe and Ricochet. Again, not to say that it's not there, nor is it to say that they haven't been doing something over on Collision. I just personally haven't seen it. And normally, a stretcher match is the blow-off to a blood feud, or would be the blow-off to a blood feud. Whereas here, it's literally just being used. I can tell you right now that these two haven't been feuding for longer than a month. So to utilize a stretcher match in this type of situation is very wrong, in my opinion. But that is because I grow up from the you got a story, you've got the drama, you got to build to a match like that. And to just give it away willy nilly because you felt like doing it really doesn't help the case of some people that say AEW just hotshot books. Because that's exactly what that is hotshot booking. There's no reason for doing it. You just do it because you want to do it. And it's not my favorite type of booking style, which is why I tell people all the time. If you were to ask me, I probably lean a little bit more on the WWE side overall of enjoying wrestling. But I enjoy AEW for what they are. They are the alternative, and they are a great alternative. Again, I'm glad they're around. But then you also watch Collision, for instance. I saw something that was going around on social media this past weekend where on Collision there was a match between Kyle Fletcher and AR Fox. And they do this move with AR coming off of the middle rope, I believe, and he has a hold of Fletcher's hands, pulls him up, and then goes into a cutter. It's a very contrived spot. Like, it's not realistic by any means. This is also why they refer to AEW as gymnastics, because you can tell that these spots are set up, which, yeah, any genius will tell you, even WWE, yes, your spots are normally planned, especially if you've got 2 or 3 spots in a match. Yes, you've talked about them and you're going to do them, but they go as far as to really take you out of the believability of it. Like, oh, cool, it's a cool looking move, I guess, but there's nothing believable about it. Like, nobody's really going to do that in a real match or a real fight or anything like that. And that's always what professional wrestling was supposed to simulate, is a real fight. And you don't get that a lot with AEW. You just don't. Sorry for anybody that thinks that that's the case. You can sometimes, but for the majority of what AEW goes for, you're not going to get that kind of action. You're going to get these more choreographed matches. And again, nothing wrong with it. It's just a simplistic style. It's different than what maybe some people are used to. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's just different. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why you have 2 different products. You can watch your WWE for drama, and then you can watch your AEW for the athleticism. Quite frankly, that's why I watch both. I like having both. I did the same thing in the Monday Night War era. That's why you would flip-flop from WCW over to WWE or vice versa. That was the fun of it. That was always the fun of the Monday Night War era. And the tribalism, again, I don't feel like was as deep as what it has been on this WWE AEW side of things this go around. But maybe it was, and I was just naive to see that it wasn't there. But as somebody who watched everything back then, or at least the things that I could, because I couldn't watch ECW, but I did watch what I could of WWE and WCW to a certain point, and eventually I was not able to watch WWE, but that was thanks to my mother, not because I didn't want to, and I still enjoyed both products. So my thing in this is to say, would y'all quit with the tribalistic BS? Because quite frankly, it ruins wrestling. It really does. Anybody who thinks that either company should be out of business, or anybody that gets happy that a company goes out of business, or any individual loses their job, you really should probably go outside and touch grass, because there's a lot of other important things in this world, and hoping that somebody is losing their job or that a company goes under is really a waste of energy and should be placed doing something else, maybe even something productive at that. So let's stop with all of the tribalism and let's just all enjoy professional wrestling for what it is, because it really is just one of, and in my opinion, the best form of pure entertainment when you get right down to it. So let's keep it that way in Tribalism 2025. Now, I saw something where Vince Russo, surprisingly, not really, but still, was going on one of his rants again about how Saturday night's main event is way too predictable. And I mean, let's face it, we've got 3 wrestling events coming up this weekend: Saturday night's main event, Double or Nothing, and Battleground for the NXT the NXT brand. Three big time shows, really. And I do agree, Saturday night's main event is pretty much predictable. There may be a couple of matches where you could say I really don't know who's going to walk away as the winner, like the steel cage match, for instance. But the 2 title matches, the World Heavyweight title with Uso and Logan Paul, who Logan Paul got the jump on Uso at the end of Raw just a few minutes ago. You can bet Jay's retaining that title and he's going on to face Gunter at Money in the Bank. Same with John Cena and R-Truth. I don't even know if that's a title match per se, but Truth and Cena having a match, you can pretty much guess who's going to go over in that one. And I get the predictability being there. The tag team match with Punk and Zayn against Breakker and Rollins, I think that is pretty predictable as well. Now, in my prediction, I think Sami Zayn is going to turn on CM Punk and align himself with Rollins and Breakker, but I haven't seen too many people talk about that. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's thought it, but I'm pretty sure that's where we're heading with it. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen. But if it doesn't, then I would say that that is a match that might not be as predictable as you think. I have seen some criticisms lately of Triple H's booking style coming very close to Vince McMahon's, of having the no winner situation, like a DQ throwout, things like that. That has become more commonplace. But in the same breath, I don't know if that would work in this tag match. I think we are going to get a definitive winner and a definitive loser, and it's arguable. Do you put Rollins and Breakker down for the sake of maybe a longer story to be told with Punk and Zayn and anybody else that gets involved, or do Rollins and Breakker pick up the win and continue with their momentum? Because I feel like that would be what the predictability is. I would go that route, and I think most other people would do the same thing. That might be also another thing that they're saying is too predictable. But to me, the most unpredictable match is the steel cage match, because there's not really been a definitive strong favorite between Priest and McIntyre, and I think a steel cage between these two, it is anybody's ball game. You can make the argument that McIntyre won at Mania, so it's now going to be Priest that goes over. You could even say that this could be where, Drew wins his big feud, at least his biggest feud for at least for the last few months. Beating Damian Priest is a great way to get yourself back into the main event scene. So I don't know who will win that one, but I don't know if I would agree that Russo's overall statement is that it is too predictable, unless some of those things come to fruition, specifically in the tag match. And then, like I said, the 2 matches, at least, that have the 2 champions involved. That is a very predictable situation. So maybe if you would go the route that you can predict 3 of the 5 matches that I believe are on the card, then yeah, maybe it is too much. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens, because Saturday night's main event is still around the corner, and we still got to wait for it to happen before we see what truly goes on the show this upcoming weekend. Now, Rollins and Breakker, that whole stable situation right now, so far it isn't living up to what people are expecting, and I can't say is that I don't blame them. I feel like Breakker was supposed to be more of like this enforcer type, but not at the behest of Rollins, like not Rollins telling him what to do, but just that he's this imposing force, kind of similar to what they did with Batista at the beginning of Evolution, where he's just their enforcer. He's the big muscle guy that you don't tell him to jump, he just does it, and he just destroys anybody that gets in his way. Rollins telling Breakker what to do is giving very familiar vibes to what I've seen some people call is a carbon copy of the Roman Reigns Jey Uso story that was told throughout the Bloodline saga. And it's hard to disagree with that. So I'm willing to still see where this Breakker and Rollins group goes. I still think we need either one more member or at least a team to get added to this group. And I think if we do that, then we'll be solidified as having a new stable to worry about. Kind of like a new rendition of the Dangerous Alliance instead of Evolution. That's my opinion. I don't know if it continues on the path that we're going. I don't think you can get away from the bloodline carbon copy argument because so far Rollins has done a lot of the same mannerisms. He's talked to Breaker not in the exact same way as Jay, but he's kind of poking at him in the inside, trying to lure his way into where he can manipulate him to do what he needs him to do, similar to what Roman did to Jay. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel on that one. I'm still, again, willing to see where this goes, but it is questionable as to exactly what it is they're trying to go for here. On the last bit of information, since we've got Money in the Bank coming up here soon, there's been a lot of questions as to who's walking out with the briefcase because right now there's not really a clear-cut favorite for the men's or women's for that matter. We saw some additions to the women's Money in the Bank added just tonight on Raw, where we saw Rhea Ripley and Roxanne Perez get added to the women's Money in the Bank, which has Alexa Bliss currently sitting in it. But when it comes to the men, we don't have very many people on the men's Money in the Bank ladder match just yet. However, there are two people, at least internet-wise, that are in contention for this briefcase. And I think there are two top contenders. Of course, one more so than the other. Some people have wanted LA Knight to get the briefcase, but there are some, and I actually kind of fall into this category. It's no offense to LA Knight. I have enjoyed him. I think he is a great talent, and I still think he's a great talent for WWE's product currently. But I don't know if he's going to be main event scene caliber anymore. I think he hit his stride and was very much on that fan ride just a few, what was it, just a year and a half ago. And I don't know. I don't think they capitalized when they should have. It's one of those situations where, the iron and it was hot. It was white hot. So strike the iron while you have it. And I don't think they did that in enough time. They should have capitalized and maybe at least make him world heavyweight champion during that time. Maybe it would feel different, but right now I just don't see him in the main event slot right now. And I hope I'm wrong. But there's another guy who's been making enough noise now that I don't think you can deny him at this point. And that would be one, Karrion Kross. Kross has shown how good he actually is getting himself over. Now having I believe they said is the number one selling t-shirt on Shop, the WWE's website, on his own. They didn't push him, and now his shirt's being sold in the arenas as of tonight, according to what he put out on social media a couple days ago. So he's done all that he can, and he's doing the right things, at least on his own accord. There is somebody online who actually came back and said, specifically one who goes by the name Bishop Dyer now, the former Baron Corbin, who said the company doesn't like when you get yourself over. So we've seen Kross on Main Event for the last couple of weeks now, where he took on Tyler Bate and Dragon Lee, both respectively. He lost to Dragon Lee, but he beat Tyler Bate this past week, and he got a good reception from the crowd for both matches. So is he falling into that? Well, WWE didn't do it, so they're not going to really capitalize on it like Baron Corbin is suggesting, or the new Bishop Dyer. Or are they setting us up to surprise us and lean into it? Because we know that Triple H is very much one of those guys that, while they deny that they don't let social media influence their decision making, I disagree. I believe there is at least a little bit that gets taken into account there, because this has been more of a fan-serving situation for WWE since Triple H's reign. I think there is a good possibility we see Karrion's breakout moment in Money in the Bank if he gets added to it. I, for one, hope he does, but only time will tell if that becomes the case. I think right now, though, if you were to pick a men's Money in the Bank winner, those would be your two that would be the best potential to be a good briefcase holder as well as future world champion material. And that also goes with how you book them afterwards. But right off the top, those would be my two guys that would be the favorite to carry the briefcase this year. But for my own pick, I would want Karrion Kross to win that Money in the Bank briefcase and eventually cash in to become, in my opinion, World Heavyweight Champion, not WWE Champion. Let him hold that world title and let's see what he can do on a heel run as champion. I think he could rise to the challenge and I think he would fit with that championship just perfectly. Guys, that's all I have for you this week. I'm curious as to think, who do you think should hold the Money in the Bank briefcase? Let me know your pick for both the men and women's, and we'll talk more about Money in the Bank as it gets closer. But let me know also, do you think Saturday night's main event is too predictable? And do you feel like the tribalism in today's wrestling is ridiculous? And if it's not, tell me who you decide to watch. And even if you do find it ridiculous, I'm sure you have one that you watch more than the other or prefer. Sound off in those comments below and let me know why you watch one over the other more. We can talk about that as well as anything else. As I've told y'all before, I enjoy talking about wrestling with every single one of y'all, so just shout out anything in those comments and let's have a chat. Make sure again you're following us on all of our social medias, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and give us that thumbs up. I'll come back again with more wrestling talk next week, but until then, I hope you enjoy your weekend ahead. It is Memorial Day weekend, and we've got a lot of wrestling on tap, so there will be plenty to talk about. So y'all take care, enjoy the week, and continue to love pro wrestling.